When a long-term relationship ends, some mums also lose their adult children too. And not in a slow way, not after years of distance, but really suddenly and without any kind of conversation. And for many mums, the most confusing part about this is how quickly they have become the problem. If this is happening to you right now, let me know in the comments what is going on and what hurts the most about what's happening. You're already trying to get your bearings once your relationship ends, right? Everything's shifted, your home, your role, your future. You are hoping that your adult kids might stay close during this time while you try and work things out. They stay connected while you're adjusting. But instead of that, they're pulling away. Contact has become less and less, and they're telling you that they don't really want to have a relationship with you. There isn't space to talk about it. There's no gradual change. There's just this cavernous hole between what was and what is. So, alongside the loss of your partner, you're now dealing with the shock of losing connection with your children without any proper explanation. If this situation comes up for you, I see it all the time. It's happening more frequently where relationships are breaking down, and they're not isolated events when kids also withdraw. Here's what's happening underneath this. When long-term relationships end, adult kids are affected too. They're adjusting, they're trying to make sense of what's happening, and sometimes they take sides. In fact, many times they will take sides. And often they don't even have the full picture of what's going on. They hear parts of a story, but not all of it. And they're sorting through their own feelings while everything is really unsettled. But we also live in a culture that struggles with the complexity of relationships ending. It prefers to have clear roles and simple storylines. In estrangement, the simple story often becomes, hey, one person's to blame, one person is hurt, and somebody caused that hurt. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it. And often, mothers are placed in that role. You were there the longest, you mattered more deeply, and you had a lot of influence. That doesn't make it right, by the way. So when pain needs somewhere to land, it's often the person who was closest that it lands on. And most mums love their children so deeply. We all have done our best, right? We've all tried our hardest to be the best version of motherhood we could be. And, reducing a complicated family history to one single villain adds another layer of loss to an already really painful situation. That's why the shift can happen so quickly. Simple stories offer relief and complexity becomes too hard. If you're dealing with distance and no contact with your adult kids right now, I'm sure it's really difficult for you. What part's the most challenging? I want to talk to you about what helps, okay? Because that's why you're here. You want to know what the heck will help me. So let's talk about what helps and how to manage your way through this really difficult time. The first thing and the most important place to start is family relationships are layered. More often than not, there's more than one thing that can be true at the same time. More than one person can have played a part in what's going on. If the story makes you entirely bad and somebody entirely right, then that is not the whole story. People are entitled to their views, of course they are, but having a view that doesn't require you to defend yourself is really important. So remember that this story is more complex than people are making it out to be. Next, many mums turn blame inward. We tend to carry a sack of guilt behind us. We blame ourselves often. So you did what worked to raise your kids at the time. You showed up, you shaped them, you mattered, and you still do. But once our kids are grown up, our influence changes. You don't control how they interpret events. You don't decide how they respond. You're not responsible for their adult behavior, their choices, or the stories that they tell themselves about what's going on. Our influence, unfortunately, is really limited, and responsibility begins with them. They have to take responsibility. What your children do today does not erase the years that you spent loving them and raising them and caring about them. It doesn't. I know that it's really painful, but it doesn't erase that stuff. Finally, I want you to step out of this being permanent, because sometimes that can feel so overwhelming. It really matters that it feels awful, but it's only part of the story. You know what I mean? It's not the end. You don't need to keep justifying your life or your parenting or what your intentions were. People need a villain. They're usually looking for context, and we need to choose dignity over defense and remind ourselves that we did our best. Everybody makes mistakes. You don't need to be understood by everyone, even if those people are your children. You need to learn to live peacefully with yourself. You did your best. If you've been cast as a villain and that keeps pulling you into feelings of shame or self-doubt or not being worthy or not being lovable enough, I really empathize with that. And I want one clear place for you to begin. Check the description, check in my description of this video. You're going to find links to things. You're welcome to come and join me every single week where I do an open Q&A session. I'm more than happy to try and help you with any questions that you've got. If you want to have some one-on-one support with me, you can check my diary. That's also in the description and book a session with me, and we can work through some of the things you're going through. You didn't become the villain because you failed here. You became the villain because simple stories are so much easier than sitting with the complexity of a long-term relationship ending. And you are also allowed to step out of the role of villain anytime you want to. I know it's not easy, but it's going to help. If you're being cast as the villain and it keeps pulling you back to feelings of shame and distress, please know this is not your fault. It's just not. It's really important for you to take the best care of yourself, look after yourself, and to remember that this is a process and you will get to the other side of it. Take the best care of yourself, and I hope to see you very soon on my channel. Take care.